The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and fresh espresso, the kind of place where young professionals pretended to work while actually scrolling through their phones. I sat in the corner booth, my laptop open to a spreadsheet that would make most people's eyes glaze over. Numbers had always made sense to me in a way people didn't. My name is Diane Mercer, and at 28, I had built something I was quietly proud of. 3 years ago, I'd taken a risk that everyone said was foolish. I'd invested my entire savings into developing a software platform for small businesses, the kind of thing that helps mom and pop stores manage inventory, track sales, and compete with the big chains. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Really worked. Last year, a tech company in Seattle had acquired my platform for an amount that still made me dizzy when I thought about it: $7.2 million. After taxes and paying back the small business loan I'd taken, I was left with just over $4 million sitting in various investment accounts, growing quietly while I figured out what to do with my life. The thing is, I didn't look like someone with millions in the bank. I still wore my favorite jeans with the frayed hem, still drove my reliable but unremarkable Honda Civic, still lived in my modest one-bedroom apartment in the suburbs. My younger sister, Rachel, said I had the fashion sense of a graduate student surviving on ramen. She wasn't entirely wrong. "You're going to be late," came a voice that made me smile despite myself. I looked up to find Marcus Chen standing there, 2 coffee cups in hand, his dark hair slightly messy from the wind outside. He was wearing that gray sweater I loved, the one that made his eyes look almost golden in certain light. "I'm exactly on time," I said, closing my laptop. "You're early. I wanted to catch you before the chaos begins." He slid into the booth across from me, handing me one of the cups. "Vanilla latte, extra hot, no whip." "You remembered." "I remember everything about you, Diane." We'd met 6 months ago at a charity fundraiser I'd attended mostly out of obligation. Marcus worked in commercial real estate, buying, selling, and managing properties for investors. He was charming in an easy, unforced way, the kind of person who could talk to anyone about anything. When he'd asked for my number that night, I'd hesitated, not because I wasn't interested, but because I'd learned to be cautious. I hadn't told him about the money, not yet. In the beginning, it was just practical caution. You don't lead with your bank balance on a first date. But as weeks turned into months, as casual coffee meetings turned into weekend getaways and late-night phone calls, the secret became harder to share. How do you tell someone you've been dating for half a year that you're secretly a millionaire, that you've been letting them pay for dinners you could easily afford, that you've been driving your old car and wearing discount store clothes while you could buy pretty much anything you wanted? The truth was, I liked how Marcus treated me, like I was valuable because of who I was, not what I had. He didn't try to impress me with expensive restaurants or flashy gestures. We went hiking, we cooked dinner together, we talked about books and dreams and the strange beauty of autumn leaves. But today was different. Today, I was meeting his family for the first time. "So," Marcus said, wrapping his hands around his coffee cup, "I should probably warn you about my mother." My stomach tightened. Warn me? She's particular. She has very specific ideas about things: how people should dress, how they should act, what makes someone suitable. He made air quotes with his fingers, looking uncomfortable. She grew up poor, and I think it made her kind of obsessed with appearances and status. Should I be worried? "No," he said quickly. Then, more honestly, "Maybe a little. Just be yourself. That's all I care about." But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened slightly. This mattered to him. His family's approval mattered. I made a decision in that moment, one I would later question 1,000 times. I would let them see what they expected to see: a nice but ordinary girl, someone clearly beneath their son in terms of wealth and status. I would observe how they treated me, how Marcus responded, and then, when the time was right, I would reveal the truth. It wasn't exactly revenge I was planning, more like a test, a way to see people's true colors before I committed my heart fully. "I'll be on my best behavior," I promised, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. The Chen family home was in Maple Ridge, one of those neighborhoods where every house looked like it had been designed by the same architect who valued symmetry over personality. Large colonials with perfectly manicured lawns, 3-car garages, and the kind of front doors that cost more than some people's cars. Marcus pulled his BMW into the circular driveway, and I felt my pulse quicken. Through the front window, I could see movement, people gathering, waiting. "Ready?" Marcus asked, killing the engine. I nodded, smoothing down my simple cotton dress. I'd chosen it carefully, nice enough to be respectful, plain enough to be unmemorable. My hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and I wore the minimum of makeup. I looked like someone who tried but didn't have the resources or knowledge to really succeed. The front door opened before we reached it. A woman stood there, mid-50s, with highlighted blonde hair styled in a way that screamed expensive salon. Her dress was designer, I recognized the label, and her jewelry was real. Everything about Vivian Chen was polished, from her manicured nails to her practiced smile. "Marcus, darling." She pulled him into a hug that seemed more for show than affection. Then her eyes landed on me, and I watched her do a quick assessing scan from head to toe. I saw the moment she cataloged and dismissed my outfit, my lack of accessories, my simple appearance. "And you must be Diane," she said, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "How lovely to finally meet you. Marcus has told us so little." There was a sharpness to that last comment, a small dig that Marcus either didn't catch or chose to ignore. "It's wonderful to meet you too, Mrs. Chen," I said, keeping my voice soft, a little uncertain. "Thank you so much for having me. Your home is beautiful." "Oh, this old thing." Vivian waved a hand dismissively, but she was clearly pleased. "We've been thinking about upgrading. This neighborhood is getting so common. Marcus, show Diane to the living room while I check on dinner." The living room was exactly what I expected. Expensive furniture that looked uncomfortable, abstract art on the walls that probably cost a fortune, and a crystal chandelier that seemed excessive for a Tuesday afternoon. Sitting on the cream-colored sofa was Marcus's younger brother, Jason, 24, wearing designer jeans and an expression of bored superiority. "So you're the mystery girlfriend," Jason said, not bothering to stand. "Marcus has been keeping you under wraps." "I like to take my time with important things," Marcus replied, a slight edge to his voice. "Where's Dad?" "Conference call. You know how it is." Jason finally looked at me directly. "So, Diane, what do you do?" I'd prepared for this question. "I work in software development, database management mostly. Pretty boring stuff." It wasn't technically a lie. I did work in software development. I just happened to own the company that had been acquired. But the way I said it, the self-deprecating tone, made it sound like I was some low-level employee pushing papers. Jason's eyes glazed over immediately. "Oh, cool." Marcus's father, Richard, appeared 15 minutes later. He was a tall man with silver hair and the kind of presence that came from years of being in charge. He owned several car dealerships across the state and clearly thought he'd very highly of himself. "Diane, was it?" He shook my hand with the grip just slightly too firm. "Marcus tells me you two met at a charity event. Which charity was that?" "The Children's Hospital fundraiser. I volunteer with their literacy program sometimes." "Volunteer," Vivian repeated, coming back into the room. "How generous of you to do so. Do you have much free time, then, in your database work?" The question was loaded with implications. If I had time to volunteer, I must not be very important at my job. If I wasn't very important, I probably didn't make much money. "I'd try to make time for things that matter," I said quietly. Dinner was an exercise in subtle humiliation. Vivian had prepared an elaborate meal, clearly catered despite her implications that she'd slaved over it, and served it on china that she made sure to mention was imported from Italy. The conversation flowed around me like a rock in a stream, present but not really part of the current.
Marcus, darling, did you hear that the Thornton's daughter is getting married? To that investment banker from New York. Such a lovely match. She went to Barnard, you know.
The implication was clear. See, Marcus, this is the kind of woman you should be with. Someone from the right schools, the right family, the right tax bracket. I'm happy for them, Marcus said neutrally. And Jason, how are things going with that girl from your firm, the attorney? Vivian continued. Such a smart girl. Pretty, too. Jason shrugged. We went out a few times, nothing serious. You need to think about your future, both of you, Richard interjected. The connections you make now matter. Your mother and I didn't work this hard to build what we have just to see you throw it away on... He stopped himself, glancing at me. Well, you know what I mean. I knew exactly what he meant. I was what they considered a throwaway. A mistake Marcus would hopefully correct before it became permanent. Throughout all of this, Marcus was quiet. Too quiet. I could see the tension in his face, the way he gripped his fork a little too tightly. But he didn't defend me, didn't tell his parents to back off or point out how rudely they were behaving. He just let it happen. So, Diane, Vivian said, turning her attention fully to me for the first time since we'd sat down. Where did you go to college? State University, I replied. I had a partial scholarship. Oh, well, that's very resourceful of you. She smiled in a way that made it clear she pitied me. Not everyone can afford the better schools. And your family, what do they do? My father passed away when I was 19, I said, keeping my voice steady. This was true, and it still hurt to talk about. Cancer. My mother works as a nurse. My sister just finished her teaching degree. A nurse and a teacher, Richard repeated. Very noble professions. Not very lucrative, though. They help people, I said quietly. I've always thought that was more important than money. Vivian actually laughed. It was a light, tinkling sound, but there was steel underneath. How refreshing. That's a very idealistic view, dear. You'll understand when you're older that money may not be everything, but it certainly makes everything easier. I bit my tongue. I was 38 years older than my bank balance suggested, and I understood perfectly well the relationship between money and ease, but I stayed quiet, playing my role. After dinner, while Marcus helped his mother in the kitchen, or rather while Vivian talked at him about appropriate life choices, Jason cornered me in the hallway. Look, he said, his voice low, I'm going to be straight with you. You seem nice enough, but you're not what this family needs. Marcus is supposed to marry someone who brings something to the table, someone who can help elevate the Chen name, not drag it down. I stared at him, genuinely shocked by his bluntness. Excuse me? I'm doing you a favor here. Break it off now, before you get in too deep, before Mom and Dad really turn up the pressure. It's only going to get worse. And Marcus? He's weak when it comes to family. He'll choose us eventually. He always does. Something cold settled in my chest. Has he done this before? Brought someone home and then dumped them because of your parents? Jason's smirk was all the answer I needed. 3 times, maybe 4. I lose count. There was always something wrong. Wrong background, wrong job, wrong appearance. One girl was too ambitious. Can you believe that? Mom thought she'd outshine Marcus. He leaned in closer. You're not special, Diane. You're just the latest in a long line of not good enoughs. I should have walked out right then. Should have called a cab, gone home, and blocked Marcus's number. But I didn't. Because now I was angry. And when I got angry, I got creative. Thank you for your honesty, I said, matching his tone. I appreciate you looking out for me. He looked surprised that I wasn't upset. Yeah, well, like I said, you seem nice. Better you know now. When Marcus and I left an hour later, driving through the quiet streets of Maple Ridge, he was apologetic. I'm so sorry about tonight. They were worse than I expected. My mom especially. It's okay, I lied. They're just protective of you. No, it's not okay. The way they treated you, the things they implied... He trailed off, shaking his head. You should have said something. Yes, I thought, you should have.
Do they do this with everyone you date? I asked carefully. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. They have high standards, and yeah, they've been critical before. But Diane, you're different. What I feel for you is different.
Different enough to stand up to them? He didn't answer, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. When he dropped me off at my apartment, he kissed me goodnight and promised to call tomorrow. I watched his taillights disappear around the corner and then went inside, my mind already working through possibilities. I opened my laptop and pulled up the file I'd been avoiding looking at for the past week. It was a property listing that my financial advisor had sent me, suggesting it might be a good investment. A large colonial house in Maple Ridge. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, recently renovated. The owners were desperate to sell, something about relocating for work and needing to close quickly. The address was 847 Sycamore Lane, the same address I'd just left, the Chen family home. I hadn't made the connection before, hadn't been paying attention to my advisor's investment suggestions. But now, looking at the listing, reading the desperate tone of the seller's notes, I understood. Richard and Vivian Chen were in financial trouble. They were house poor, drowning in a mortgage they couldn't afford, trying to maintain appearances while their world crumbled around them. And they had no idea that the poor, naive girl their son was dating could buy their house with cash if she wanted to. I picked up my phone and called my financial advisor, William. He answered on the second ring. "Diane, it's late. Everything okay?" "That property in Maple Ridge you sent me last week, the one at 847 Sycamore Lane, is it still available?" "Should be. The sellers are getting anxious. They've dropped the price twice already." "I want to buy it. Cash offer, but I have some conditions." "I'm listening." I smiled, and it wasn't entirely kind. "I want the sale to go through a shell corporation. I don't want the sellers to know who's buying until after closing, and I want to close fast, 2 weeks if possible." William was quiet for a moment. "Diane, what are you planning?" "Just a little lesson in humility," I said. "Can you do it?" "I can do it, but are you sure about this? Revenge purchases are expensive forms of therapy." "I'm sure. Draw up the papers." After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment, thinking about Marcus, about the way he looked uncomfortable but said nothing, about Jason's casual cruelty and Vivian's polished disdain, about the way they'd all treated me like I was something to be scraped off their expensive shoes. They wanted to judge me for what I didn't have? Fine, let them find out exactly what I did have. Let them learn what it felt like to lose everything. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in deception. I continued to see Marcus, continued to play the role of the sweet, slightly naive girlfriend who was trying so hard to win his family's approval. I bought a few more modest outfits, made sure to mention my tight budget in casual conversation, and generally reinforced every assumption his family had made about my financial situation. Marcus, for his part, seemed to relax slightly. He thought the awkward first meeting was behind us, that things would get easier from here. He didn't know that his mother had started calling me, oh so casually, with little suggestions. "Diane, darling, I saw the most darling dress at Marshall's the other day. Very affordable, and it would look lovely on you. Much better than that thing you wore to dinner. Should I pick it up for you?" Or, "I hope you don't mind me saying, but you really should do something with your hair. I have a friend who works at a beauty school. They do cuts for half price. I could set up an appointment if you'd like." Each call was a tiny knife, precisely placed, and each time I thanked her sweetly and promised to consider her suggestions, all while watching the real estate transaction progress in the background. William worked miracles. The shell corporation, cleverly named Mercer Holdings, LLC, though the Chen family wouldn't know to make that connection, made an all-cash offer that was $15,000 above asking price.
Richard and Vivian accepted immediately, probably crying with relief that they'd found a buyer willing to pay so much for a house they could no longer afford. I learned through my real estate attorney that the Chens were 3 months behind on their mortgage. They'd taken out a home equity line of credit to maintain their lifestyle, to keep up appearances while Richard's dealership struggled in a competitive market. They were drowning, and selling the house was their only way out.
They planned to move to a smaller home across town, something they could afford, though Vivian was apparently telling everyone they were downsizing by choice to be closer to Richard's main dealership. The closing was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. That same Friday, Marcus invited me to a family barbecue at his parents' house. "It's kind of a goodbye party," he explained over coffee. "They're moving next month, and Mom wants to have one last big gathering at the house. I know the first meeting didn't go great, but maybe this will be better, more casual." "I'd love to come," I said, and I meant it. The timing was perfect. My sister Rachel was the only person who knew what I was planning. I'd told her everything over wine and Thai food 3 days before the barbecue. "You're insane," she'd said, but she was grinning. "Absolutely insane. I love it." "Is it too much?" I'd asked, genuinely uncertain. "Am I being vindictive?" "Diane, they treated you like garbage. They judged you without knowing anything about who you are or what you've accomplished, and Marcus just let them." Rachel had leaned forward, her expression serious. "You're not doing this just for revenge. You're doing this to see if Marcus is worth keeping, if he can look past money and status when it's you who has it, instead of them." She was right. This was a test, not just for the Chen family, but for Marcus too. The barbecue was in full swing when I arrived. The backyard was filled with people I didn't know, friends of the family, business associates, neighbors who'd come to say goodbye to the Chens. Vivian was holding court by the pool, accepting condolences about the move like she was a tragic heroine forced to leave her beloved home. "The new house is lovely, of course," I heard her tell a woman in a wide-brimmed hat. "Smaller, but very elegant, and the location is so much more convenient. We're really simplifying our lives, you know. All these big houses, they're just too much to maintain." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Marcus found me near the drink table. "Hey, you made it. Mom's been asking about you." "Has she?" I tried not to sound skeptical. "Okay, maybe not asking, but she knows you're coming." He hesitated. "Listen, I have some good news. Dad's business is turning around. He got a new investor, and it looks like things are going to stabilize. He's in a much better mood today." I filed that information away. So Richard had found new financing, probably using the proceeds from the house sale. They really were desperate. "That's wonderful," I said. "And there's something else." Marcus took my hand, leading me away from the crowd to a quieter corner of the yard. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about the future. I know my family hasn't been easy, but I want you to know that you're important to me, more important than their approval." My heart squeezed. He looked so sincere, so earnest. For a moment, I wavered. Maybe I should just tell him the truth now, forget about the big reveal, just be honest about who I was and what I had accomplished. But then I saw Vivian watching us from across the yard, her expression calculating, and I remembered Jason's words. "He's weak when it comes to family. He'll choose us eventually. He always does." "That means a lot to me," I said carefully. "But Marcus, if it came down to it, if your family really couldn't accept me, what would you choose?" He didn't hesitate. "You. I'd choose you. Even if they threatened to cut you off, even if they made you choose between their money and me?" Now he did hesitate, and in that pause, I had my answer. He wanted to choose me. He meant it when he said it. But when push came to shove, when it was real and not hypothetical, he would fold. "It won't come to that. They'll come around. They just need time to get to know you." "Right," I said softly. "Time." At 4 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from William. "Closing complete. Congratulations on your new property. Keys being delivered to your office as we speak." I took a deep breath. It was time. I found Vivian in the kitchen, arranging desserts on a silver platter. She looked up when I entered, and her smile was genuine more than usual. She was probably thinking this would be one of the last times she'd have to tolerate me.
Once they moved, she could probably convince Marcus to take a break from our relationship. "Diane, I was just about to bring these out. Can you help me carry?" "Actually, Mrs. Chen, I was hoping we could talk for a moment, privately."
Her smile faltered slightly. "Of course, dear. What's on your mind?" I closed the kitchen door. Through the window, I could see Marcus laughing with his father and some other men. Jason was flirting with a brunette by the pool. Everything looked so normal, so perfect. "I wanted to thank you," I said, "for your hospitality these past few weeks. I know I'm not what you hoped for in a girlfriend for Marcus." Vivian had the grace to look embarrassed. "Oh, Diane, I'm sure I don't know what you mean." "Please, we both know exactly what I mean. I'm not from the right background, I don't have the right job or the right education or the right appearance. I'm not good enough for your son." She set down the platter, her expression hardening. "If you know that, then why are you here? Why are you wasting everyone's time?" "Because I love him," I said simply, or at least I thought I might. But I've learned a lot these past few weeks, about Marcus, about your family, about what really matters to all of you. "And what have you learned?" Vivian asked coldly. "That you're all so focused on appearances, on status and money and what people think, that you've forgotten how to see what's actually valuable. You look at me and see someone beneath you, someone to pity or dismiss. I've been perfectly polite. You've been patronizing and condescending," I interrupted. "You've made comments about my clothes, my background, my career. You've tried to fix me, change me, mold me into something you'd find acceptable. But here's the thing, Vivian. I don't need fixing." Her eyes flashed. "I think you should leave." "I will, but first I need to tell you something. That new house you're moving into, the one you're pretending is a choice rather than a necessity, I hope you like it, because it's going to have to last you a while." "I don't understand." "This house, the one you're standing in right now, do you want to know who bought it?" I watched the blood drain from her face as understanding began to dawn. "No," she whispered. "Mercer Holdings, LLC. That's the company that purchased this property. Mercer, like my last name, like the poor, naive girl you've been looking down on for weeks." Vivian grabbed the counter for support. "That's impossible. You don't have $4 million? Actually, a bit more than that now, thanks to some good investments. I sold a software company last year. The software I developed, the business I built from nothing while working full-time and going to school at night at that state university you sneered at. I bought your house, Vivian, with cash." The kitchen door opened. Richard walked in, probably looking for his wife, and stopped when he saw her face. "What's going on?" he demanded. "Ask your wife, or better yet, ask your real estate attorney who bought this house. Who's going to own every inch of this property you've been showing off for the past decade?" Richard's face went purple. You can't." "I can, and I did. The sale is final as of about 20 minutes ago. You'll need to be out by the end of the month, as stipulated in the contract. I'm planning some renovations." Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking confused. "What's happening? Why is everyone yelling?" I turned to him, and my heart ached at the genuine concern in his face. He really didn't know. He had no idea what his family had done, what they'd been doing. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. Actually, I need to tell you several things." "Diane, don't. Desperately. Please, we can talk about this. We can work something out." "Work what out?" Marcus looked between us, increasingly alarmed. "Will someone please tell me what's going on?" So I did. I told him everything, about the money, the sale, the way his family had treated me, the test I'd set up. I watched his face cycle through confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally hurt. "You lied to me," he said quietly. "All this time, you lied?" "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. There's a difference. You let me pay for things. You let me think, God, you must have been laughing at me." "I was never laughing," I said, and my voice cracked. "I was trying to see who you really were, who all of you really were, when you thought I had nothing to offer." "And what did you see?" he asked bitterly. I looked at him, at this man I'd started to fall for, and told him the truth. I saw someone who couldn't stand up for me, someone who sat quietly while his family insulted and belittled me, someone who said he'd choose me over their approval, but who never actually had to make that choice because I wasn't worth defending. That's not fair, isn't it? Marcus, you told me I was different, that what you felt for me was different, but you treated me exactly like you treated all the others Jason mentioned, the ones who weren't good enough, weren't right, weren't whatever your family demanded. He flinched. Jason told you about that? He told me a lot of things. He told me to leave before I got hurt, and you know what? He was trying to be kind in his own terrible way, because he knew you wouldn't fight for me. He knew how this would end. Vivian was crying now, actual tears running down her carefully made-up face. Please, Diane, you've made your point. You've humiliated us. Isn't that enough? I didn't do this to humiliate you, I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it. The anger that had fueled this plan had burned itself out, leaving only sadness in its wake. I did this because I needed to know the truth about all of you, about what really matters when the money and status are stripped away. So what now? Richard demanded. You're going to kick us out? Ruin us? I thought about it. I could. I could evict them, could let everyone at this party know that the pitiful girl they dismissed now owned their precious house. I could make them suffer the way they'd made me feel small. But standing there, looking at Vivian's tears and Richard's fear and Marcus's betrayal, I realized I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted them to understand. I'm going to sell you back the house, I said. They all stared at me. What? Vivian whispered. I'm going to sell it back to you for exactly what I paid for it. No profit, no penalty. You can work out financing or find another buyer and use that money to buy it back. Either way, you're not losing your home. I don't understand, Richard said. Why would you do that? Because I'm not like you. I don't derive pleasure from other people's pain. I don't measure worth in dollar signs and designer labels. I looked at Marcus. And because even though this hurts, even though you disappointed me, I still care about you enough not to destroy your family out of spite. Marcus's eyes were wet. Diane. But we're done, I continued. You and me. Because I need someone who sees my value, even when they think I have nothing. Someone who would defend me against anyone, even their own family. And that's not you. That's not fair, he said again, with less conviction this time. Maybe not, but it's true. I walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I really did fall for you, the you I thought you could be. I hope someday you find the courage to actually be that person. I left through the kitchen door, walking around the side of the house to avoid the party. Behind me, I heard voices rising. Marcus arguing with his parents, Vivian crying, Richard demanding to know how to fix this. But I kept walking. 3 weeks later, I sat in a cafe, not the same one where Marcus and I used to meet, somewhere new, working on a new project. I decided to start another company, this one focused on financial literacy education for low-income students, something that might have helped people like Vivian avoid the trap of living beyond their means. My phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. Hi, Diane, it's Marcus. I hadn't heard from him since that day. I meant it when I said we were done, and he'd apparently accepted it. The house sale back went through smoothly, with Richard securing financing through some investor who had better terms than the bank. They were staying in their home. Hi, I said neutrally. I wanted to thank you for the house, for not destroying everything. You're welcome. And I wanted to apologize, really apologize, not the half-assed version I should have given at the time. He took a breath. You were right, about all of it. I let my family treat you terribly, and I told myself it was okay because I'd defend you if it got really bad. But that was just cowardice with extra steps. Yeah, it was.
I've been thinking about why I did that, why I always do that, and I realized something.
I was so worried about them not accepting whoever I dated that I never stopped to question whether I should accept them, their values, their priorities, the way they treat people. That's a big realization. I'm in therapy now, trying to figure out who I am separate from who they want me to be. He paused. I'm not calling to ask for another chance. I know I don't deserve one. I just wanted you to know that you changed something in me, something important. I felt my eyes sting. I'm glad, Marcus. I really am. Are you okay? Are you happy? I looked around the cafe, at my laptop open to plans that excited me, at the life I was building on my own terms. Yeah, I said. I think I am. Good. That's good. Another pause. I heard through Jason that you're starting a new company, financial education? News travels fast. He's actually been different too, less of an ass. I think what happened shook all of us up, made us look at ourselves. He laughed, but it sounded sad. You did more for my family in one afternoon than years of therapy probably would have. I didn't mean to fix anyone. I just wanted to be seen. I know, and I'm sorry I couldn't see you when it mattered. We talked for a few more minutes, carefully dancing around the hurt that still lingered between us. When we hung up, I felt something shift inside me. Not quite closure, but something close to it. My sister met me for dinner that night, and I told her about the call. Do you think you'll ever give him another chance? She asked, stealing a French fry from my plate. No, I said, and I meant it. He's growing, and that's wonderful, but I need someone who doesn't need a dramatic lesson to treat me with respect, someone who sees my worth from the beginning. Very wise. Rachel raised her glass. To knowing your worth. To knowing your worth, I echoed. 6 months later, I was at a tech conference in Boston, presenting about inclusive design in financial software. After my talk, a man approached me, tall, with kind eyes and a warm smile. That was fascinating, he said. I'm Derek Patterson. I work in nonprofit technology. We've been trying to solve exactly the problems you're addressing. We talked for 2 hours, first about work, then about everything else. He told me about his background, raised by a single mother who'd worked 3 jobs, the first in his family to go to college. He told me about his work helping nonprofits leverage technology to serve their communities better. He didn't ask about my clothes or my car or where I lived. He asked about my ideas, my passions, what kept me up at night besides code. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him without hesitation. I never told Derek about the money, not right away, but this time it wasn't a test. It was just not relevant, not to who we were becoming to each other. When I finally did tell him, 4 months into our relationship, we were sitting on his couch eating Chinese takeout and watching terrible reality TV. So, I said casually, I should probably mention that I'm kind of rich. He looked at me confused. Okay, do you want different takeout? We can order from the fancy place. I laughed. No, I mean really rich, like sold a company for several $1,000,000 rich. He set down his chopsticks. Seriously? Seriously. Huh. He thought about it for a moment. Does this mean you'll finally let me take you to that overpriced restaurant you keep saying is too expensive? Derek, I'm trying to tell you something important here. I know. You're rich. That's great. Congratulations on your success. He picked up his chopsticks again. Does it change who you are? Does it change what we talk about or what we do together?
No. Then it's just a fact, like how I'm allergic to shellfish or how you hate cilantro. It's information, but it's not who you are. He smiled at me. Although, if you want to invest in my nonprofit, I wouldn't say no. And just like that, I knew. This was what I'd been looking for, someone who could see past the surface, whether that surface was poverty or wealth, and just see me.
I did invest in Derek's nonprofit eventually. We turned it into a joint venture, my financial education platform integrated with his technology infrastructure for nonprofits. It's helping thousands of people now, teaching them the skills that Vivian never learned, that my mother struggled to master while raising 2 kids alone. I still own the Chen family home, technically. I sold it back to them, but I kept a small share, not enough to control anything, just enough to remind myself of what I learned. The paperwork sits in a folder in my office, along with a note I wrote to myself that day. Don't judge people for what they don't have. Don't forgive people for judging you for the same. And never, ever let someone make you feel small because they can't see how tall you really are. Marcus and I aren't friends exactly, but we're cordial when we run into each other at industry events. He's dating someone new, a teacher he met through volunteer work, someone who, from what I can tell, his parents don't entirely approve of, but he brings her around anyway. He's learning. Vivian still sends me a Christmas card every year. I don't know if it's guilt or genuine gratitude or just her way of maintaining appearances. I send one back. We're never going to be close, but we've reached an understanding. She learned that worth can't be measured in designer labels. I learned that humiliation, even deserved, doesn't feel as good as you think it will. The moral of my story isn't that revenge is sweet. It's that the only person you can really change is yourself. I didn't change the Chens by buying their house. I changed myself by walking away from Marcus, by choosing my own worth over his potential, by building a life that didn't need validation from people who couldn't see my value. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all, not making them suffer, but refusing to let their judgment define me. Sometimes Rachel asks me if I regret how I handled things, if I would do it differently now. I tell her the truth. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that I fell for someone who couldn't fight for me. I regret the pain all of us went through, but I don't regret learning the lesson. Some things you can only discover by testing them. Some truths only reveal themselves under pressure. The Chen family thought they were buying a house in a nice neighborhood. What they actually bought was a mirror, one that showed them exactly who they were when they thought no one important was watching. And me? I thought I was teaching them a lesson about judgment and worth. What I actually learned was something far more valuable, that the only approval I needed was my own, that being underestimated was a gift that showed me who people really were, that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from people who can't see your light, even when you're shining as bright as you can. I'm happy now, really happy. Derek and I are talking about getting engaged. My company is growing. I volunteer 3 times a week teaching financial literacy to high school students. My mother is proud of me. My sister is my best friend. And every time I drive past a big house in a fancy neighborhood, I smile, because I know that appearances can be deceiving, that the person in the modest car might own the mansion, that the girl in the discount store dress might be worth millions, and that worth, real worth, has nothing to do with money at all. It's measured in courage, in integrity, in the ability to see people for who they are, not what they have, in standing up for those you love, even when it's hard, in choosing kindness over cruelty, even when cruelty would be easier. The Chens taught me what I didn't want. Derek showed me what I did, and that, in the end, made all the difference. True worth is not measured by wealth or status, but by how we treat others, especially those we believe have nothing to offer us. The way people treat you when they think you're beneath them reveal their true character, and sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let their judgment diminish you.